Hey there, and welcome to the Girl Means Business podcast, the show that's all about helping photographers just like you build a thriving business without sacrificing your sanity. I'm your host, Kendra Swalls, a former teacher turned full-time photographer and marketing coach, here to fill your earbuds each week with practical tips, real-life stories, and a whole lot of encouragement. So if you're ready to dive in, let's get to it because this girl means business. Hey friend, welcome back to the Girl Means Business podcast. This week is a really fun, exciting episode because it is my first interview episode in months. In fact, since relaunching the Girl Means Business podcast back in January, I have not really had any interview episodes for a couple of reasons. One of the biggest ones was just scheduling. When you are dealing with different people's schedules and trying to schedule interviews, it can get really time demanding. And so I kind of put them on the back burner for that reason. But the second reason was based on the feedback I received from you as a listener. A couple of things I had heard was that the longer episodes were harder to listen to because you don't always have a whole lot of time. And then just the relevance. Sometimes the interviews weren't always relevant to what the topic of this podcast really is about. And I get a lot of people on a weekly basis pitching me to be on the podcast. And most of the time, these people either I can tell have not listened to the podcast or their topic just doesn't really align with what I am wanting you, the listener, to get out of these episodes. And so I didn't want to just open this up as a place where anybody can come in and have a conversation. But when my friend April from April Pinto Photography reached out to me and offered the idea up of what if we have a conversation, because we have very similar beliefs on some things, but then very different beliefs on other things when it comes to running a photography business and marketing. And I was like, this is a great idea because I talk a lot about my perspective and my ideas and my experiences, but sometimes it's helpful to have other people come in and share their perspective on things. And so in today's episode, April and I are chatting about multiple things, primarily social media. She is the queen of social media when it comes to learning how to really build a business that uses social media as a foundational piece. She has utilized a lot of social media platforms to her advantage. So if you are someone who is using social media, you want to get more involved in social media, or it's something you enjoy, this is going to be a great conversation for you. We also talk a little bit about some of the trends that we're seeing in photography, everything from AI trends to client requests and all these things. So it's just a really great conversation and I'm excited for you to listen. I do have April's links down in the show notes if you want to go follow her, learn more about her, see what she's doing on social media. Definitely go check her out. One little thing I will say is we were recording this episode on Zoom and we had a little bit of connection issues. So every once in a while you might hear a little pause where it kind of cut out for a second. Just don't panic. It comes right back. So just keep that in mind as you are listening. But I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation. And I cannot wait for you to hear my chat with April Pinto Photography. Well, April, welcome to the Girl Means Business podcast. I am so excited to chat with you today. How are you?
I'm fangirling out. You know I love you. Even though we're friends in real life, every time I listen to your podcast, I'm like, that's my friend.
Oh, you're so
I'm
sweet.
so thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat with it. Okay, so we have a lot we want to talk about. So before we get into all of that, tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure thing. I am in Lake Dallas and I am a fine art wedding and portrait photographer. My passion has always been around the family, and that confuses a lot of people because they think you have to have one niche, and I disagree. I love to grow with my family, so oftentimes people will hire me for their engagements and weddings, and we get to do bridals and boudoirs for them to come back and keep us as their forever photographer with their maternity and family and newborn. There is nothing as overwhelmingly joyous to me as someone calling me saying they want to hire us again and come back and
Aw.
watching their little ones grow, having like seen their first dance and remember back when they were just falling in love is why I love what I do.
I love that. Yeah. Well, and that's funny because, like, you're right. Like, I kind of think of you primarily as a wedding photographer. And for everyone listening, like I highly encourage you to go and check out her Instagram and her website. Your work is stunning. Like every time, and it's one of those things where
Thank you.
I talk a lot about on the podcast and just in my coaching about creating a brand around so like that is so recognizable that when people see your work that they know it's yours. And when I see your work come up on my feed, I like don't even have to look at the name. I know it's
Oh,
yours because you
thank
have this
you.
very and I don't even know how, like, there's not a way to describe it. It's just like a uniqueness to who you are. It's like you coming through in your work. And I
Aw.
think that's so like special that you have without meaning to probably like defined that for yourself of like, this is what my work looks like. And it shows. So definitely for everyone listening, go check it out because your work is stunning and I'm always in awe of it.
Oh, you're amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of things I want to talk about, but the first thing I want to talk about, because you have a very different perspective on marketing in a certain area than I do, and we've discussed this. So, for everyone listening, you know that I am very much kind of anti social media. I use it just to stay relevant. It's not my favorite place to spend time. But you, April, you kind of thrive on social media. Tell us a little bit about your experience with social media and marketing in your business.
Thank you. Well, I will say for anyone that is afraid or dislikes social media, the last couple of years, I mean, the Meta platform, the Pinterest platform, the YouTube platform, all of those kind of closed circuit marketing tools that we did not lean on before, it's those have been a game changer. It's changed, social media has changed every aspect of who I am as an artist, my team to shoot. I mean, it has really just it is a platform that never sleeps, and that's why I love it. I utilize on a regular basis Instagram Reels, Instagram Stories. I have two Facebook pages because even though it's a social media platform, Facebook only allows you to have so many friends,
Mm-hmm.
but unlimited followers. So I learned early on that most of the people that naturally supported me were my organic friends and family and their extensions. So I turned my homepage, which is just April Pinto on Facebook, into my second business page. So they just mimic each other, which has been profoundly helpful to me. So I don't really have a personal social media existence anywhere. Um, and so I utilize those regularly, as well as Pinterest and YouTube. And most recently, I tried TikTok for a little while, but it's a joke. Not stepping on anyone's feet who utilizes it. I know a lot of people that find success, but those are my regular platforms. And the number one platform I use that's kind of, I guess it's now considered social media. Would you consider Google social media now? Because it's kind of gone in that direction.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. To me, social media is like a little more. I mean, I guess Google's kind of double-sided when you can like are you talking about like your like Google profile and things like that?
Yes, your platform now,
Yeah.
they roll out the reels and they roll out things kind of how Meta has started to
Yeah.
do.
I
Um,
think they're trying to get into the social media game, and I don't know that it is.
yeah, I still prefer, if I had to choose one platform for marketing, it would be Google Business
Okay.
because it's free. But yes, I do actively, like I said, use the Instagram and Facebook. And I mean, we track everything daily, and we do an average weekly, and I mean, you're reaching 38,000 organic people from that. Like, how do
Yeah.
you not find that helpful?
Yeah. So, okay. Um, this brings up lots of questions for me. One, I want to go back to the Google piece for a second because I do talk a lot about Google business accounts, Google My Business, and that is such a valuable tool that a lot of people are not utilizing
I know.
because having a presence on your Google profile and keeping it updated, having reviews coming in, like being active on that account it can do so much more for your searchability, and that's how I still believe a lot of people are finding photographers through Google searches, and especially certain demographics. And so having that presence can be such a huge boost for that. Do you feel like that it kind of becomes this like chicken or the egg situation of if you're utilizing the Google My Business as it were, as if it were a social media platform like Facebook or Instagram, you're posting content regularly, you're doing all the things. Do you think that that then becomes the source of how people are finding you, or is it just helping you boost your visibility on Google so that people are finding you through like organic Google searches?
I'm so sorry you froze for one
Oh,
second.
that's okay.
I think I caught that though. Um, That's such a great question. I get asked this a lot, and I really think that it is not a chicken or the egg situation. I really think it goes hand in hand and they complement one another. I think when you think of social media, it's your digital portfolio. It, like I said, it never sleeps. People that are up at midnight can see you. They look at your grid in 2 seconds. And I have people tell me all the time, I saw your grid in 2 seconds. I knew you were the one I wanted to hire. I've also had people say, I saw your grid and you're a little too moody, or it goes both
Yeah.
ways. But most people, that it's a quick at a glance bit of evidence of everything you have to offer, and it builds trust,
Hmm.
which is really important. So circling back to Google and your question, I definitely, like I said, if I had to choose one, I would choose Google. I think 60% of our inquiries organically come from Google search, and that's profound. So, but what often happens, and I notice this when we're tracking our analytics, I average around 5 to 10,000 views on Google monthly, and which is great. But then those people, they do go to your website, but they get kind of confused with Google because they think Google is your website. So that they'll go to your website, they'll reach out to you, but I always see that those same people are tracking me on social media also.
Yeah.
So I think it's just one more Meta and Instagram and Facebook are just one more level of like trust.
Mhm.
It lets them know you're legitimate. It kind of shows them at a glance like who you are and what you're offering. But I hope that does that answer your question
Yeah,
thoroughly?
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that like because in my mind when you were asking about the Google being like a social media thing, it's interesting because I don't view it as a social media platform, but I do talk a lot about the value of being present on your Google business profile and how powerful that can be for helping you get more organic search. And I
Mhm.
think you're right. I think that there's all these layers, like I call them the top of funnel pieces. There's all the ways that people can find you and all the ways that people can learn about you and build trust with you and build relationships with you. And so all of these platforms and all of these outlets are just different ways for you to reach your audience. And I think it's important for people to find the ones that fit best for them.
Mhm.
Okay, so the idea of social media, Instagram, Facebook. You said you're doing did you say Pinterest? Y'all do Pinterest, YouTube, like all these things. That's a lot of content. So, how do you manage being a photographer and you have a ton of clients, you're always working, you always have something going on. So how do you manage? Because I think that's the biggest thing is people are like, I don't have time. It gets bumped down my list of things that I need to be doing. It's not super exciting for a lot of people to create that content. So how do you stay on top of that without getting burned out?
That's such a great question. And kind of going back to your Google, I'll hit on some points there to kind of go back to that as well. It's so fun. I'm so passionate. I'm a total nerd about creating content. So we are constantly, I have the little device that attaches my phone to the top of my camera. So if I'm shooting you, I'm also creating reels for you in on my phone. And I have a bank of all of that. So I can go back, like with this pride campaign we're doing this month, I can go back to all my like LGBTQ community over the past 4 years and pull their content because it's stored on Google Cloud for me. So if
Yeah.
you're not utilizing something like that, you have to utilize something like that because you have to have an easy access bank of all of this content. So we have a power hour. I learned this from an SEO manager I hired like 6 years ago, and I learned to just prioritize it. So just like we all as women and moms, we wake up, we have our routine, taking care of the house, taking care of the kids, the animals, all of that. It's part of my routine, and I'm just committed to it. I've tried admins. We do have an admin for other things, but I've tried admins to do my marketing.
Mhm.
I've tried different apps and digital things to do it. And I'm such a control freak because it's my baby. I need to convey my passion. And I was constantly having to tell my admin, like, okay, do this and do this. So I was doing all of the work. I'm
Yeah.
sure you can relate to that.
Yeah.
So I literally, most days of the week, I'm a huge proponent of I'm a huge advocate of taking a lot of time off. So I have more time off than I work for sure. But I don't know. I say that, but then work doesn't really feel like work to me
Yeah.
most of the time. But my power hour literally consists of this, and it's going to overwhelm most people. I have my, let's say, my gallery for the content for that day. I'm sure you can see my gallery, and I learned when I have consistent gallery across all of the platforms, it really helps my analytics. So I'll start with Facebook usually, and I'll create a topic. I always try to feed my audience something that's helpful. I did a lot of tips, tricks, like pointers, things that are not just like, hey, buy my burger, like
Yeah.
look what I'm offering. I try to feed them information and helpful stuff. And so I'll pick my concept, pick my gallery, and I'll start with Facebook. I'll post it onto my personal, my business, and then I say take that same concept and I post it into Instagram as a post, as a story, as a reel. And then I have engagement time throughout my day periodically. So I don't know if a lot of people don't know this. Actually, it blows my mind how many people is as probably more important than posting when it comes to the Meta platform. So if you're posting on Instagram and you're not then going back after your post and loving and liking and flagging and commenting not only your own work but everyone else's work, you're in. If you start really engaging, so even if it's 2 or 3 minutes across the board on Instagram and Meta, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
phone?
You're good. You cut out a
All
little
right.
bit, but you're fine.
Okay. Um, and Facebook, once you start that 2 to 3 minute engagement periodically, just whenever you have time, whether you're waiting for water to boil or waiting in line at the pickup line to pick up your little ones or whatever it is, that engagement of liking, loving, commenting, flagging others really boosts and maybe do a reel and then a story all in that same time. And then maybe at the other high points, maybe 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, drop another reel that we have saved in a draft or schedule it. And I'll take that same content and share it to Pinterest. And then I'll usually link that to a blog. So it's just this beautiful funnel and it's all connected. And then sometimes when we're feeling really ambitious, I'll try to find a way to link in my YouTube video, which is
Mhm.
just video, just wedding videos.
Yeah.
So but it doesn't really take an hour. It takes about 20 minutes. We generate blogging separately, so those are ready to go and they're just kind of in draft status. And then I take the same content. So this might be why mentally I think of Google as kind of leaning toward social media. We'll
Yeah.
take a few of our favorite images from all of that same content and post it on Google Business,
Hmm.
and they have something where you can make an offering that's free. A lot of people think you have to pay for that, but it's free. And that's what their algorithm rolls out, kind of like a reel or a story to their Google users. And so you might take the content and not only add the photos into your Google platform, but add as an offer maternity, newborn, lifestyle packages for this week or whatever. And
Yeah.
so that's my power hour. It takes me about 20 minutes and I do it most days of the week.
So you're not scheduling your content ahead of time. You're doing it in real time. Yeah.
Yes, I've tried to schedule it. Other don't have as much control over it as I need and want to have.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned the engagement piece. That is definitely one of those things I do agree. Like, if you are going to be spending your time on social media, you have to be social on social media. You have to engage. It just posting content and walking away for the rest of the day, you're not going to get the. And I think that that's the biggest thing is a couple of things you've mentioned that I kind of want to touch on is you talked about how much you enjoy it. I think that's a huge piece of it. Is like if it's not something that brings you joy, then it's probably not the thing you're gonna because it's gonna become too much of a chore and a checklist. So if you
Yeah.
enjoy it, do more of it. But I also think, you mentioned the fact that like you are going in and engaging with other people. That is so powerful because there's a lot of times I hear people that are like, well, social media just didn't work for me. And I was like, okay, but let's walk through what you were doing. And they're just throwing up content and then walking away and expecting it to like take off and skyrocket. But you have to go back and you have to engage and you have to like you have to give out the engagement that you want to receive back. And even in the few times that I have kind of prioritized social media, that has been one of my biggest strategies is going in and finding people to go and engage with. And every time I spend time doing that, it brings in more engagement on my account. Now, for me, that's just not where my passion lies. And so but I think it's really, really good for people to hear that if this is something that you find joy in, if it is something that you're like, no, I really enjoy being social on social media. That's where a lot of my clients come from. I wanted them to hear your perspective and your version of it because I don't, I'm always open to like hearing other aspects of what I'm not a fan of. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and some of my favorite ones are the ones who bring on people who see things differently than they do. And I think that's such a powerful thing. And so I know you and I have had multiple conversations about my dislike of social media and your love of social media. So I was like, this would be perfect.
Well, I have
Okay.
the things I hate that you're trying to encourage me to utilize and love too that I'm really trying to do, Kendra.
Yes. Like email.
Yes, I loathe the email marketing, but I'm trying to crush it like you.
Well, I'll get you there. Don't worry. And who knows, maybe
Thank
you'll bring me on board social media one day and I'll be like, this is amazing. Um, okay, so speaking of social media, you talked a little bit about like the different things that you're doing, the reels and the stories and the post and then all the things. So let's talk for a second about the idea of trends.
Oh my goodness.
So we're going to start with talking about kind of the trends we see on social media, but then we also want to talk a little bit about the trends we're seeing just in the photography space in general. So let's talk a little bit really quick about you mentioned like your content. Do you ever go in and do like the quote unquote trending content on social media? Because I think that's a big thing that people get hung up on. Like you
Just
mentioned that you're recording your behind the scenes content, you're taking the galleries and you're putting those into content. But are you also sprinkling in these other things where you're like keeping up with the Joneses on social media?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
If you have been listening to the Girl Means Business podcast for any amount of time, then you know my love of email marketing runs deep. Not only is it a great way to generate new leads, but it's one of the most effective methods for nurturing warm leads and turning them into sales. Now, over the years, I've tested several email platforms, and my favorite by far is Flowdesk. Not only do they make email marketing simple and easy, even for the technically challenged, but they have everything you need to create stunning emails, capture leads, make sales, and automate the entire process, giving you time back in your busy day. And the cherry on top is you're only charged one flat fee no matter how many subscribers you have. So while other platforms will increase your price when you go over your pricing tier limit, Flowdesk has no price increases or hidden fees. If you're ready to give Flowdesk a try, click the link below in the show notes to save 50% off your first year. Let Flowdesk help you design emails people will love. Click the link below and check it out. I have a feeling you're going to love it just as much as I do.
Yes, unfortunately, I say unfortunately, but I am I'm a trendsetter. I am a leader. I am not a
I love
sheeple.
it.
That's just like I'm like you. Like we are A-type people. So when I see a fad, I don't roll with it. So it's been hard. I have to cognitively say, April, I know you hate shoulder pads and bridal gowns, and I know you don't want these gaudy 80s things everywhere, but let's face it, if you don't keep up with the Joneses, as you say, we're going to become irrelevant. And there are enough 20-year-old photographers out there that will attract the relevant trends. So I've learned to roll with it. I've learned to adapt to it and to implement it on a regular basis. Yes, for
Yeah.
sure.
It's hard because when I go on, the few times I get on there and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna create some content, and I have looked at like the trending stuff, there is something like visceral that happens in my body where I'm just kind of like, I can't. I cannot bring myself to like physically do this thing because I'm like, everybody's doing it and it drives me nuts. I don't want to just be another sheep walking off the cliff with all the others. Like, I just don't. And so it's really, really hard for me to look at a trend and go, oh yeah, let me get on board with that. Because then I'm like, I don't want to be one more of those, like people are scrolling and it's the same audio, it's the same thing. I'm like, I don't know. There's like something like I'm defiant against them.
What my 19-year-old says, it's cringy. He's like,
Yes.
and I'm like, yeah, I feel that now. Well, we have to face it though. Okay, let's talk about shooting. I
Yeah.
mentioned earlier, I've taught my team to shoot for what's trending.
Yeah.
And that's just the way we have to evolve. So everything we take, I love these scenic horizontal landscapes with the sun and the hills, and we have to, if you take it horizontal, you have to take it in portrait mode for reels, for
Yeah.
content. Every video that we want to take in these scenic wide open horizontal videos, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
You have to think about what is usable for Instagram and reels and stories. But yeah, so gosh, so much is trending right now. In answer to your question, the biggest thing is vintage is like so in right now, right?
Which
And
makes me feel so old because I feel like vintage is not vintage in my opinion.
I know I'm 44, and to me, vintage is like boho hippie,
Yeah.
not 80s. But it's so in right now, and it took me a minute, like the direct flash point and shoot aesthetic, like it was very, I'll use it again. It was very cringy.
Yeah.
I've
Oh,
learned the skill for off-camera flash. Why would I do a point and shoot
yeah.
you thousands of dollars? And these moms with their editorial lifestyle vibes, they want that now. So
Yeah.
you have to sprinkle it in while maintaining your true self. And I
Yeah.
think that's a challenge for people.
It was so funny. So like I don't do a whole lot of weddings anymore. But I shot a wedding a couple weeks ago and it was like they didn't ask me to necessarily do like the point and shoot flash model, but it was a very young bride. She was in her early 20s, so all of her bridesmaids were young. And so I'm coming in and I'm taking pictures, and normally in the past, I usually get the one shot of like the one bridesmaid with her cell phone up and they're all grouped together to
So
get the selfie.
cute.
And it's
Yeah.
super cute. But while they're all getting ready and stuff. Well, this time I was looking up, I was like, they're not using their cell phones. They're using a point and shoot camera where they can flip the screen around and see themselves. And these couple of bridesmaids, they all, like three or four of them, all had these little point and shoot cameras. I did not see a cell phone out the entire time, which was kind of refreshing. But
Yeah.
they're all on the dance floor throughout the night with these little point and shoot cameras. They're taking pictures, and like one girl's in the mirror taking selfies with her point. And I'm like, this is what, like, this was my life in the 90s when I had a little disposable camera with me all the time. Like, what is happening? I was texting my friends and I was like, God, I feel so old that now the generational, like the cycle of everything coming back around is all the things we did in high school before cell phones and before all this stuff, like all that's becoming cool again. And I'm all for like put your phone away and just enjoy the moment. And that aspect of it I really like. It was just funny to me when I started seeing and like the Polaroid movement of like kind of that mix of the point and shoot with the filmy
Yeah.
kind of look. And I do like that. And I do like that those things are coming back around to some degree. But when it becomes the thing that the brides or the families or the couples or whoever you're photographing, the seniors, and they're all like, they hire you for your work, but then they want to tell you how to adjust your editing. I'm like, that is the thing. I'm like, if you want somebody that's going to give you the look you want, hire the person who shows that on their page. I'm not showing you vintage Polaroid style
Yes.
images. So that's my biggest frustration with trends is that if you are someone, a photographer who's going to be like, I shoot trends, that's great. You run with that and you evolve with the trends and you do the point and shoot thing and you do the Polaroid look and you do the film look or the blurry image look or whatever it is that's in style at that moment. But then you have to be also educating your audience on the fact that, like, if you don't do that, that may not be what you're going to get in your gallery. You may get a few if you ask for specific things like that. Like you were saying, you have to shoot for the trends, but oh yeah. Can you tell I have
Authenticity,
a
I think, is.
soapbox for this?
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm feeling your passion for this, girl. Authenticity is key for any photographer. We teach a lot of branding. We teach a lot of, and they some of them are just chasing the trends, and and I get it. You want to hire someone right now,
Yeah.
but you want to be timeless at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so I think that authenticity, that's what I said, sprinkling in. Yeah, I feel your passion. I'm really blessed because I came from film and I love film and I always use about a 16 to 20% film grain on all of my work.
Yep.
And I've even had to put an addendum in my contract that says, you can't say you like my work, you want my style, and then ask me why there's a blur in some of your photos. That's a film grain. That's not a blur. So I've had to option to turn off the film grain, but
Yeah.
most of them love it because it's part of my work. It's part of my style. But
Well, that's
I,
the
I
thing
I'm
is
loving this.
they're coming to you because they love the look of your work. And I think that that is something that like photographers that are coming up who are just trying to figure out like who is your audience, what is your style, like your goal should be to get to the point where people are hiring you because of your work, not because you're the lowest price, not because you're the most convenient, not because you just happen to have openings when they need you, but you want to get to the point where, like I said at the beginning, your work becomes so recognizable to some degree that there are people who are like, I saved up money to work with you because I
Yeah.
love the way your images look. And whatever that is, some people do the light, bright, and airy. Some people do the dark and moody. Some people do the true to life. Some do the films. Like there's a style for everyone out there. And that's another one of my kind of soapbox moments is the photographers who are like, well, I'm going to edit different based on what my clients are wanting. And I'm like, but then you're not being true to you anymore. Now you are becoming a chameleon who's just, and then when people go to your site and they see all these different things, they don't know what they're going to get from you. And that scares a lot of people. So I think the fact that you have become very confident in what you shoot and what your style is, I think that's really a sign of you being a success in your business.
Oh, thank you. It's funny that you hit on that topic because this year we do have brides that say, I love your posing. I love your personality. I love your presence online.
Mm-hmm.
Or we have brides or moms that will want to come to the studio. We have a beautiful bohemian editorial lifestyle studio in Lake Dallas, and it is gorgeous. And we have moms that want to come to it, and they see it on my website and they know the vibe, and they'll say, I want to wear this gothic black dress. And I'm like, well, we're not communicating here.
Yeah.
But I'm down with that, but we might want to rent, one of the other studios or
Yeah.
whatever. But and so they might like one aspect of you, but they want to like dictate this other thing. I recently had a client who said, if it's gray, if it's dark, if it's after a storm, your work is naturally going to be darker and moodier, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it's, of course, you can shoot otherwise, but if you're going for that organic vibe, the hair blowing in the wind, all of
Yeah.
so I had a client recently who came to me and she was like, I know that this lady's session you shot was right after a storm. You could tell it was right after a storm. And they wanted that. I gave them the option. We could reschedule. They wanted it. We're out there. I mean, there are still storm clouds. The waves are crashing. The wind is blowing. The hair is tumultuous. It was magic. Some clients would hate that.
Yeah.
She wanted it, so we pushed forward. So I had a second client come to me after seeing her work and said, I know this was the day, but can you recreate this? I want this. I'm like, hey, me and my friend AI, we can make it happen for you.
Yeah.
But we did. But
I was like, you cut out for a second, back up a little bit.
sometimes it might be a little bit moodier due to overcast or storm or a little bit more sun drenched. If I had my way, they would all be drenched. Um, it's still, you have to maintain, like I said, that authenticity, that like brand is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's where a lot of people get hung up is they think that like, I see this all the time in Facebook groups where people are like, how can I make my editing and my style more consistent when I have sessions that are some are indoors, some are outdoors, some are sunset, some are day? And I'm like, it's not necessarily about the time of day or the location. It's about the vision. It's about the execution, and it's about how can you bring your signature touch no matter where you are or what your setting, what your situation is.
I could not agree more. Style guides that are consistent. That's why I used to rent a bunch of different studios, or I had studio shares, and now I have my one space. And yes, I modify it when I'm ready. It is a brand. And so and
Yep.
ever show this is what a lifestyle family session looks like with your newborn, and I'll post some maternity photos from out at Merle Park in a field together in the same post. And even though one's in my studio and one's in a field, they still look cohesive. And but I've been doing that intentionally to show them that cohesiveness.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, when it comes to style and everything, like there's definitely got to be consistency just in who you are and having that shine through your work. Okay, I want to get back to the idea of trends. Another big trend that we're seeing, and I noticed that there was we're in a couple of Facebook groups that are similar, and there was someone who posted the other day that they had to have the conversation with their client about why they were not able to achieve a certain look naturally because the ones that they were referring to were AI. And you commented and you were like, yes, I've had to have this conversation as well. So let's talk about this aspect of AI in our industry and kind of the pros, the cons, where we see this going. Is it a trend? Is it not a trend? Is it sticking around? All the things. What are your initial thoughts?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
If you're a podcast host or someone wanting to be interviewed on podcasts as a guest, visit podmatch.com. Podmatch automatically connects ideal podcast guests and hosts together for interviews. We always say it works just like a dating app, but instead of connecting you for dates, it connects you for podcast interviews. Podmatch has connected over 85,000 guests and hosts together for interviews that listeners love, all while saving you countless hours of administrative work through built-in automations. If you're ready to level up your podcast interviews on either side of the mic, start today by visiting podmatch.com.
Anyone who is not running wildly into the direction of AI is going to be left behind. In every aspect of that doesn't mean what you might think it means. I'll elaborate. Every aspect of my marketing, my blogging, my social media content. Am I still with you, sweetie?
Yeah.
Okay, my video changed. Every aspect has geared in the direction of working smarter, not harder.
Mm-hmm.
And AI is just at the forefront. It's coming in hot. I mean, I had a marketing manager 18 months ago who I was paying to create my to update my descriptions on my website regularly, because it's important to change those,
Yeah.
to do some blogging for me. And he was using early beta form AI. What we would know is maybe a version of Chat GPT or something along those lines.
Yeah.
We didn't know that, but these marketing people have been, I mean, maybe you even, they've been using these types of tools by other names for years.
Yeah.
So I think we all need to be, it speeds up culling, it speeds up editing, it speeds up blogging, it speeds up delivery. It is improving across the board, but it is a tool. It is not replacing, it's assisting. It should support you, not substitute your creativity, right?
I could not agree more. I'm very pro AI to some degree. And now here's where I think, like I always say, like we need to add a little asterisk here where we kind of say, like, here's the difference between what we're talking about and what a lot of people might be having in their mind is AI. I think a lot of times people hear AI and they think of those photos you see on social media floating around where it's like the before is this sweet family standing in a random field that's completely flat and they're here in Texas. And then the after is AI has placed them in this like mountain setting with the sunset and the beautiful sky. And it's not where we were from. You know, you can clearly tell you were not, that photo was not taken or could not have been taken in Texas. And so that's the AI version I think a lot of people
Right.
worry about
Mhm.
that might be kind of, or like they're modifying the images via AI and things like that. And yes, some of that I do have some pause around, but I agree with you in the fact that if you're digging in your heels and you're like, I am not going to use AI, it's kind of like I use this example a lot when my parents were running their business decades ago, and the internet came along. If they had dug in their heels and been like, we're not going to build a website, we're going to continue putting ads in the yellow pages, they would eventually have become extinct. Like you have to keep up with what's happening in our world and across the board, not just in our industry, but in our society as a whole. AI is the thing. And every Canva has an AI aspect. Google has AI assist. You go into like your Google Gmail account, they have an AI assist thing. Everything has some feature of AI. And so it's the future of just business. And like you said, if you can use AI to help you cull, I have a good friend that I work with that does sports photography, and I help her with her sports photography, like the back end stuff. There are programs now that make that so much easier because it identifies faces and it groups all the images together. So you're not having to go through and be like, okay, everybody with the number 12 jersey goes in this folder, and everybody with the 24 jersey goes in this folder. It's doing all that for you. It's saving time so that you can spend more time doing the things you love, spending time with your family. Like it's just it's here. It's not going anywhere. So you might as well get on board and figure out how to
Right.
use
How to
it to
make
your
it work for
advantage.
you. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I just think and I almost want to put a banner on my website and across the board everywhere I mentioned that says, the soul still comes from me. You know,
Yes.
because I have, you're using it for efficiency, or you're not faking emotions or staging scenes. Like you used the example of the family in a field. I've seen that, and I think of like the green ski screens.
Yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned the post in the blog in the Facebook page we're both on. I'm not kidding. The lady sent me a Lord of the Rings Pinterest photo, and it's a real Italian place, but it's obviously AI like beyond,
Yeah.
recognition. And she's like, "Don't you have any places like this in Dallas?" And I'm like, "We have Adriatica, we have the Chapel of Palacios, we have
Uh,
the Dallas Arboretum. We have all these realistic, beautiful places, ivory covered stone walls. But this is Lord of the Rings, lady. This is AI, and she just doesn't get it."
yeah.
And so, but fully AI generated images, yeah, not my thing for sure. But I think, like you said, if we are still the soul and it's still coming from us. Now, how do you feel about clients now being aware of AI? Because that's the part I don't like.
And like what do you mean? Like being aware that we're utilizing AI features?
I had a woman the other day that said to me, "I know you have access to AI. Can't you just do these head swaps?" And I was like,
Oh.
And then that was a mom. I had a bride say to me, she knew I could use AI for her wedding photos to make her hair, to improve her hair across the board. And I was like, and I overheard her telling one of her bridal party this, oh, she has AI, she can fix my hair and all the photos. And I'm like, no, I kind of wish
Well,
clients didn't know it was an option, you know?
yeah. So I kind of think of that like how Photoshop used to be in people's minds. Like you'd always
Uh-huh.
have those clients who were like, "Oh, can't you just Photoshop that? Oh, can't you?" It's similar, and I tried like I now personally I have not had somebody say that to me. I have not like had those run-ins, but I could see how it's kind of like people who just assume that photographers can do everything. That if you
Yeah.
have a camera that you can then go be great at photographing, every single thing. And I'm like, well, there's certain skills required for certain things. Like I'll give the
Yes.
example of like real estate photography. I'm not going to go do real estate photography. One, I don't have the lenses for that. And two, it's not something like if you're looking for that real high, that's not what I do. It's not, I would have to learn how to do that. To the average person, they just assume that if you have a camera, you can do everything. If they assume you have Photoshop, you can do all the things Photoshop can do. That if you have access to AI, that it's a magic wand. And I don't think that they quite understand. So a lot of times, like that's almost becomes a new education piece that we can start
Yeah.
putting out as content of like what the reality of what AI can and can't do for your photos. That would be a great blog post. That would be a great social media topic, like talking about the fact that, like, yeah, we can do these things easily, but I'm not going to change who you are or what your moment was just because AI can do that. That's my personal take on it.
I am there with you all day long. I just wrote down in my blog idea long running list I have here, AI versus real life. So thank you for that idea. I will have to credit you. Yes, absolutely all day long. You're exact. I could not agree with you
Yeah.
more.
And that's where, like, when people talk about, or photographers will say, like, well, I just don't know what to talk about in my content. It's this kind of stuff. It's these things, it's the questions that you kind of roll your eyes at when they come in through email or when you're on a phone call with a client, they ask a question, you're kind of like, oh, I gotta talk about this again. We have to do better. And this is where I'm like, we can't put everything on our clients. This comes from like my education background. I think of like we can't put everything on all the blame on all the responsibility on the parents. We have to take some responsibility ourselves as of how
Yeah.
we handle it. Same thing with our industry. I hear a lot of bitching and complaining about, well, our clients these days are this and clients want this and they expect this and they expect that and blah blah blah. And we're not turning around and looking at like, well, what are we doing to set
Yeah.
these expectations? Like what are we doing to help get information out there so that the larger audience, our clientele, have a better understanding of what it is that we do and how we do it and how we're evolving. I think everybody wants it to be like we're Oz behind the curtain and we just make this magical thing happen with our cameras and our editing skills. But it's okay to kind of pull the curtain back and go, no, I'm just a human with a computer and a camera and I know how to use both. Like that's really like it's okay to say that and to be like, I've spent 13 years honing these skills and that's what qualifies me to do this. And like you can still pay me for these things, even if I reveal some of my like quote unquote secrets of how I do business.
Yeah, I 1000% agree. I 100% agree. Yeah, it is not the client's fault. If they show up late, or their outfits didn't match, or, you have to set clear expectations, send those style guides, send strong boundaries. I've had to evolve into having stronger and stronger boundaries. This morning, I literally sent an email to a client in response to her long list of text messages trying to get me to go after a payment that was due from her significant other. And I finally said in a very professional way, listen, it is not my job to hunt down your payments, but
Yeah.
I had to set a strong boundary with her. And it isn't rude, you use contracts, timelines, shot lists for clarity with mothers that have extended family sessions. It's not, it's not disrespectful.
No.
But I think that onboarding and communication from day one is key. So many of the new photographers were trying to like help out. They're just like what you were saying, like, oh, they kept asking for inspiration shots, or it's the client's fault that the lighting was terrible because they showed up 30 minutes late and we were supposed to have a sunset session. Well, use stronger boundaries. You're to blame too. You should not allow them to show up 30 minutes late and continue to shoot them.
Yeah.
You have to have like very kind professional leadership skills in this role.
I agree. And I think, again, I go back to the idea of like, I get a lot of my, I guess, ideas for things like the podcast episodes and blog postings from the things I see posted in Facebook groups. And I say that a lot of times I come on the podcast, I'm like, so I read this post in a Facebook group and it got me thinking, and here's what we're going to talk about today, because that's where you see a lot of these conversations. And that is something that I have noticed. And I don't want to say it's even like generational, because I see it across multiple generation ages in this industry, but it's the idea that like someone's going to go in and they're going to say, oh, my client did this and blah, blah. And the second that someone's like, well, did you have it in your contract? Did you clearly state this in your email? Did you like say all the things you just said to someone? They start getting defensive, because obviously none of us want to believe that we're in the wrong, but sometimes we have to step and be like, look, I did this wrong. Let me learn from it. That's part of growing as a business owner. I made a lot of mistakes when I was starting out, like a lot. And I had to own up to them, and I had to face the reality of like, okay, I've got to figure this out, because if this happens again, I need to handle it differently, or I need to be able to be ahead of it next time and not playing, defense. I need to be playing on offense. And
Right.
it's just, it comes with, listening to people who have been doing this for a lot longer than you, and being open to the idea that like, yeah, maybe some of that responsibility falls on me, so that I need to better educate or better set boundaries with my clientele so that these things don't happen.
I could not agree more. And it's not just we hire a different photographer every year for a lot of reasons. I really try to support the local community for photography, but I also love a lot of pictures of my beautiful family all over my house.
Yeah.
So we have had photographers where they don't even tell us where we're going or what style or in. And then we've had photographers that they go the extra mile and they start preparing us from day one. And even as a photographer, I still recognize that. And I'm on top of it because I do this, but I see it and I don't say anything because it's not my business. But like you said, posting blogs, running stories, educating them through reels and pins, and gently walking them through the process with gentle reminders regularly, not just sending one contract. I loathe when a photographer will send one contract with all of her life story in it and then expect you to remember it in 8 months when it's time for your session,
Yeah.
It took a while for me, like I made mistakes. It took a while for me to gain the confidence to be able to say, hey, I know I've told you this 20 times, but you don't say that.
Yeah.
But here's a gentle reminder to make sure that Sally and Jonathan's shoes and socks coordinate with your dress. And I'm so anal. I ask my clients to send me pictures of the socks and pictures of the shoes. If you're not using my client wardrobe, I want to make sure I assist you to the fullest degree of my ability, to make sure everything it flows well.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Okay. So to kind of wrap up, are there any other trends that you're noticing in our industry or in the photography space in general that you feel like are anything we want to like touch on or talk about, or that you have strong opinions about? Because clearly I've shared my strong opinions about the things that we've talked about already.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Marketing is a puzzle. You can either give into the confusion or learn to love the solve. On the Axiom's Real Talk About Marketing podcast, guests like Aaron Schaefer of GM share how to manage challenges.
Make sure that you're not fixed in terms of what you're thinking about. The team's going to change. The way teams operate are going to change. COVID was a great example of that. The industry is going to change. Are cookies going away or not? That was another great example of that. And so how do you continue to evolve as the space evolves?
Guests from HP, The Trade Desk, and Databricks share thoughts on today's marketing landscape. Find Real Talk About Marketing on YouTube, Axiom.com, or wherever you hear podcasts.
One thing that's really, and it's so funny because I keep seeing it for a minute because it's kind of my style. I have an editorial storytelling. I'd love to hear your input and on these editorial lifestyle photos that we produce. In my opinion, I'm seeing the sun, I'm seeing the hills, I'm seeing the reflections on the water in the background. We see all of the artfulness of the image. A mother sometimes will come to me and say, "Oh, I love your style," which is all, the editorial combined with the fine art. I have a
Mhm.
good balance in my family photos. I know they want the formal for the mantle, but then I love the editorial storytelling vibe of family and maternity photos. So that's why, as a photographer, from the get-go, I most of my clients buy an album from me. And
Yeah.
the albums are storytelling albums. They might be little hands or tiny feet. They're not you looking at the camera and smiling. But what is getting to me is a mother might see another mother with her hair blowing and her dress blowing and holding her kid and looking away from the camera, and it's very artistic and editorial. But then she comes to me with, "Why aren't we all looking at the camera in our photos?" So it drives me in. What is it? What is the disconnect? Because you see it in not only my work, but it's all over Pinterest and Etsy, and I mean Pinterest and Instagram. What is it that makes the client want that emotion they feel, but then they want to pick that's why I don't have clients pick 15 images, because they're going to choose all of those images where
Yeah.
everyone's looking, their best. But how do you, I mean, what is the disconnect there?
So, okay, that's a good question because I really had to think about it. And I will say that I probably had a different opinion of this until about a year ago because last summer, my family and I, the four of us, we went to Colorado, which is like our happy place up in the mountains. And I have a good friend that's part of my coaching program. She's been a client of mine for the last couple of years. She's a photographer up there. And so while we were there, I hired her to come do our family photos up in the mountains. And I too was that client who was like, I want the wind blowing. I want the sun setting in the mountains. I want us like all interacting and like being loving and sweet and like the girls playing together and all the things. And when she sent me the gallery, because she just sent me like the digital gallery, which was awesome,
Love it.
I was going through them and I was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, so my goal was I wanted to create, I was redoing like the little entryway in our house where all of our old, like we had, I mean, old family photos from when like my youngest was 2 and now she's 9. So it's been a
You
while
were
since
long overdue.
yeah, it is long overdue. So my plan was to have, I kind of had a vision of like this real, like clean kind of, styled group of photos. Well, when it
Yeah.
came time to choose the photos, I kind of struggled with the same thing that these moms you're talking about struggle was like, okay, if I can only put a handful of these photos on my wall, which ones do I want? Now, for me, I was able to do enough that I kind of have a mix of
Yeah.
like, because I wanted one of like each of the girls by themselves, kind of looking at the camera. They're both kind of serious. Then I have one of like all of us as a family, like walking through the field and looking at each other. And then I have one of all of us kind of like smiling at the camera. But I can see how, as a mom, you're like, okay, yes, I want the emotion. I want the wind whipping my hair and me holding my child and us like doing this thing. But I also want the quote unquote safe photo of us like smiling looking at the camera because for whatever reason, that's what is ingrained in our brains in a
Yeah.
multitude of places. Like think about when growing up you were having not even just professional pictures but like if your mom brought out the camera and as a family y'all took a picture, it wasn't like, oh, take a picture of everybody opening their Christmas presents. It was take a picture of everybody in front of the Christmas tree smiling at the camera. So I think we're just
Yeah.
in our brains, we have this sort of programming to think, well, we need to make sure we have that safe photo of everybody smiling at the camera, and then if we have the emotional ones as well, those are just icing on the cake. And unfortunately, like it's going to take some time for, and maybe even just if it ever does, like reprogramming of the way we look at photography and the way we look at what these moments we're capturing are really meant for, And a lot of times I think the moms are like, we get one shot. We get one session a year or maybe two at the most to do these photos. And so I want to make sure that we're not missing the one we can put on the Christmas card kind of thing,
Yes. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think you're absolutely right. I try to tell my moms, prepping them up and then on the session, the way you hold, Xavier's hand is more important than any pose I could put you in.
Yeah.
So, trying to remind them of that. But yeah, that's a real struggle. And not taking the editorial photos. I could do those all day long, but getting the moms to not see their like body image struggles and their invisible like emotional labor and all this stuff during and after they receive these editorial photos that are so popular and they're trending hard right now. It's a real struggle.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's always going to be, I mean, just kind of wrapping the whole idea of trends, there's always going to be trends that come and go, whether it's in style, whether it's in, the way that we shoot, the equipment that we have, whatever it might be. There's going to be trends in marketing, there's going to be trends in all these things and content, but it's just, I think it's about finding this, and I hate this word, but balance between staying true to who you are and relying on the things that have been consistent in your business, whether that is style, editing, marketing, personality, whatever, but also kind of bringing in aspects of these things that are trending in order to stay relevant, in order to continue to keep moving forward and not become stagnant.
I could not have said it better. Trending versus relevance. I mean, trendy is cute, relevant is profound. It
Yeah.
is, it is all that matters, period. Relevance is powerful.
Yeah, I agree. Well, April, thank you so much for having this conversation. I feel like we could talk for hours. We have about, in the past about all the things. So I would love to have you come back on and we can debate more interesting things about our industry and marketing trends and all the things. But before we go, just kind of tell everybody where they can get in touch with you, how they can go see all your amazing, beautiful work, if they want to learn more about you.
Sure, I am everywhere. We have a great heart for mentoring. We mentor a lot of family editorial photographers coming into that, but we also mentor a lot of people for wedding photography. We have a long list of wedding photography related positions, including film and coordinating and liaisons and things like that if you're interested. But I am easy to find. My website is April Pinto Photography, and we are across the board April Pinto Photography on all of the social media, Google and Pinterest, and otherwise platforms.
Awesome. And I will definitely have those linked down in the show notes for anyone that wants to go and click on those. But thank you again, my beautiful friend, for being here. I appreciate it so much. And I look forward to chatting with you again in the future.
Thanks so much, Woody. Have a great day.